All right, everybody. So we're going to talk just a little bit about Reaganomics, um, so that you have some background information to look at some primary source documents for some DBQ practice, and then to also um, answer a question in a group online discussion. Okay, so Reaganomics. In the 1970s, the American economy grew dramatically in the years following World War II, which is called the post war economic boom. From the end of the war to the early 1970s, the amount of goods and services that were produced in the United States increased enormously. The prosperity increased standard of living for most people and most Americans, and the average American worker saw economic gains in their income. It began to falter a little bit in 1970, and from 1973 to 75, the US economy experienced a significant recession, which is a period of economic decline. In the years that followed, the American economy experienced what we call stagflation, which is a rare situation in which the economy is both stagnant and has high rates of inflation. Inflation is an increase in the price of goods and services, and it generally occurs when economies are growing. So it was interesting that the economy wasn't necessarily growing, so we had this stagflation happening. This actually really impacted American standard of living. They were paying more for goods each year, but wages were not keeping up with the price of goods, and people were increasingly worried that the economy was going to collapse, and economists couldn't agree on how to fix the problem. So, Ronald Reagan ran on a platform and the economy of fixing the economy, and the economy was a major issue in the election of 1980 when Ronald Reagan challenged the incumbent Democrat Jimmy Carter. Reagan, as a conservative Republican, ran on a campaign that would reduce the size of government, lower taxes, increase defense spending, and support states' rights. Typical conservative economic platform. He told voters that the best way to grow the economy was to cut taxes and reduce the size of the federal government, and he won that election by a landslide. He took office during a really tumultuous time. You already saw that we were in the middle of an oil crisis as well as the Iran hostage affair. But within the country, Americans were troubled by the economy, and were divided over economic, cultural, and social issues like abortion, affirmative action, busing of students, all sorts of things. Law, crime, justice was really kind of culturally dividing the country. Reagan's policies represented a promising alternative to those conflicts and really appealed to conservative voters. So when he got into office, he focused on cutting taxes, especially for corporations earning the highest incomes. Reagan also cut spending on social welfare programs while increasing spending at the military. Reagan's policies became known as Reaganomics. They're also sometimes called by economists supply-side economics or trickle-down economics. They were intended to decrease the tax burden on businesses and the wealthy so that they could invest that money back in the economy and essentially pay it forward, rather than paying it to the government in the form of taxes. This is where that idea of trickle-down economics. So the wealthy invest in business, and then that causes them to need more jobs and to put more infrastructure in their businesses and hire people. Wages will supposedly go up, etc. So conservatives believe that investments made with money would eventually trickle down to all Americans as the economy grew. So that's the idea behind this. And this is fundamental to the differences between conservatives and liberals. Liberals tend to favor deficit spending and large governmental spending to stimulate economic growth, whereas conservatives prefer cutting back that spending and putting that money in the pockets of corporations and business owners so that they can grow the economy that way. So Reagan's legacy. Reagan's economic policies were very controversial at the time, and whether his policies were effective is still really hotly contested by historians today. Political conservatives tend to argue that his policies were effective, and liberals claim that they only benefited a small number of wealthy Americans and hurt those with lower incomes. So the question that you are going to have to answer based on all of the material in this module is, were Reaganomics good for the United States? So what I would like you to do is go to the discussion board now and post your response. Your response should include evidence from primary source documents, which are seen here following this video, and also other information that was in this module or any research that you do. So be sure you are citing specific evidence. All right, can't wait to hear it. Good luck.